The final score from the London Olympic Stadium: West Ham United 2, West Bromwich Albion 1. Another 3 points for the Hammers, who move up to 7th in the Premier League, level on points with 6th placed Everton, just 3 points behind second place Manchester City, and just 5 points behind the league leaders Manchester United, with half of the season played. We are at the halfway mark, 19 games played. West Ham already on 32 points, just 8 points away from safety, Pinky, at this early juncture. Incredible.
Do you know what? You've just said something that really, really grinds my gears. Okay, because, we hear it season after season, how many points from safety, get to 40 points, all the rest of it. But we have gone down with more than 40 points. So no one is ever convincing me 40 points is the safe zone, okay? But, in all seriousness, we shouldn't be looking down the table. We should be looking up the table. And 32 points at the halfway stage, we've got to be saying to ourselves, can we just do slightly better in the second half of the season? And why not try and target a 70-point target, for over the full season and really go for it? That might involve the chairman having to put his hand in his pocket, but we've got a very good start here. 32 points at this stage, almost unheard of. I mean, is that our best after 19 games?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure about 19, but I mean, our record in the Premier League is 62 points, I believe, achieved in 15-16. So, we're more than halfway there already, albeit by just a point, but
absolutely. So for me, let's keep looking up the table. I don't think we were great tonight, and certainly for 10 minutes in the second half, we were awful, and West Brom punished us at that stage. But for the rest of the game, I'd say we were well in control. I thought we did enough tonight to get the points, albeit against a West Bromwich Albion team that are by far, in my opinion, the worst team we've played this season. And I think, for my money, the big story here tonight is the Sam Allardyce comments before kickoff.
Yeah.
And if we have broken a rule, then shame on us for insisting on that clause. But I've just got a sneaking feeling that Sam Allardyce knew exactly what he was saying.
Yeah.
And will have his own motivations for saying it. Maybe he didn't realise a deal had been struck, and he's just saying, well, do you know what? I'm not going to carry the can for us not being able to select Snodgrass tonight. Maybe he just might be making the point to his chairman, don't be doing these sorts of deals because we've got to scrap for every single point. And just maybe, and this is the real wacky one, the speed with which he walked away from the England job when things went a bit sour, I just wonder, somewhere in Sam's makeup, he might have looked at this and gone, they're not quite giving me what they promised at the job interview. And maybe being asked to leave his current position by the club might just suit Sam Allardyce.
A very interesting theory. Well, we'll see how that one pans out. But as you say, it was a very deliberate decision, clearly taken by Allardyce to mention that agreement, and you certainly feel that it wouldn't have been to the benefit of either club. That's for sure. So. Interesting theory, that, Pinky. Very, very good. And we'll see. And of course, we'll talk about that a bit later, I think, as we sum up what's happened this evening. But just coming back to the match, West Ham have secured the 3 points, Pinky. You're saying that West Ham didn't play particularly well. I'm sort of just wondering, when was the last time we did play really well? Because we've had a few of these games now, haven't we? Stockport, Burnley, Everton, I suppose you could say we played well, but again, a lot of people didn't feel that was a particularly entertaining performance from the Hammers, without wishing to, and go over old wounds. But we're eking these results out, aren't we? It's all very perfunctory but not particularly entertaining at times.
It's most unlike West Ham. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
I thought against Everton we played really well, albeit not the sort of the style that some people might prefer. But I thought we played well that night. Tonight, I don't think we did play all that well. I think we made West Brom look better than they are. and as I've said it twice, I'll repeat it, the worst team we've played this season, no question in my mind. And the good news for us is we've beaten a promoted club, and that, you know, when you're playing the clubs that have come up from the Championship, one of the things you've got to look for at the start of the season always is, do you know what, those three teams, we want to get as close to maximum points from them as we possibly can. And yeah, we've done that tonight. We've got all 3 points.
Yeah.
I thought we played so far within ourselves, you could almost see the change in gear in a player like Declan Rice. You know, for most of the first half, he's in second gear. By the time we'd gone all square in the second half, he'd shifted through several gears and was starting to say, do you know what, I'll impose myself in this game a bit more.
Yeah.
And it's, I'm not suggesting he was coasting per se in the first half, but he was certainly playing well within himself. I thought Bowen did okay this evening in general terms, but Antonio, against this caliber of opponent, you know, I mean, Antonio will be laughing his head off on the bus heading south, going, one of the easier nights I've ever had. I was a lot better than my opponents tonight. His opponents, meanwhile, will turn up rather sheepish at their training ground tomorrow, going, sorry, boss, I just couldn't handle him. and they couldn't.
No, they certainly couldn't. And another goal for Antonio, another really important goal as it turned out. Pinky's pointed out there that, you know, this is very, very most un-West Ham like this season. We're beating the teams we're expected to beat. You know, Pinky mentioned the promoted teams. We've beaten Fulham. We've beaten West Bromwich Albion here tonight. We've beaten Leeds. Talking about the other clubs at the bottom, you know, the Burnleys, the Sheffield Uniteds. We're beating these teams for a change. It's something we don't often do. So I guess that's, you know, we'll come back to that in a second, but let's have your summary first of all of what we've seen tonight. You know, West Ham winning 2-1. Played really well, didn't we? Apart from that sort of 10-minute spell at the start of the second half.
Yeah. If one of those games, we're always going to need to be patient and patient in the build-up, because as we've seen recently, Burnley and Stockport, the situation is that, you know, there are teams who are going to try and make it difficult for us. And well, at the end of the day, we were patient. We actually got the goal just that I thought our performance deserved just before half time. Good time to do it. The problem was that it was always going to change the dynamic of the second half. If we'd scored 5 minutes into the second half, I think we might have been a bit more prepared for it, because it would have happened while we were out there. But we've scored, we've gone off, we've come out, and all of a sudden things have changed and we're not ready for it. So, I mean, you know, just a fact of life. We're never at our best also the second at the at the start of the second half. I don't know why. It just seems to be a thing where we do turn off. The good thing was that, okay, it happened. We turned around and said, right, we shouldn't have done that. We should be playing better. And we switched back onto our previous mode, taking the game to them, probing. I thought Antonio's goal was a splendid goal. The build-up play, and it was a good striker finish. And, you know, overall, I thought we were worth the win. Yeah, it wasn't pretty. I was just having a quick look at the forum there, and one post caught my eye. Well, a few caught my eye, but one post that from Macca 1973. He said, we knew these games against Burnley and West Brom were going to be ugly. West Ham teams of old might have been bullied and lost these games. 6 points in 4 days. And, you know, there is that to it. I mean, you know, these are games where there was a bit of intelligence out there once they equalised. And it was, okay, let's not panic. There were a couple of efforts. They had an effort near the end, which I think was Furlong really ought to have done better with that. And
Yes.
That was switching off again towards the end. We've got to try and cut that out. But overall, yeah, not pretty perhaps, but definitely worth the points, and not to be sniffed at. Respect the 3 points.
David Moyes, no. Often criticised in the past with regards to his substitutions and the timing, and even more so, it seems, when we're in a strong position. Very proactive tonight. Those 2 big changes in the 62nd minute. Lanzini being replaced by Fornals.
In a second, because there's a point coming up on the box that I'd like to.
Yeah, I'll come in on that if you want, Graham.
Please do, yeah, please. So Ben Rama, who we felt had played really well, replaced by Yarmolenko, but early change from Moyes and effective.
Yeah, and a sign that, do you know what? This is a game we want to win. I'm going to make a positive change because we need 3 points here tonight. Yeah. And what's encouraging for me there, that is a manager that's looking up the table, not looking down the table. Mm. And just considering, tonight's other game, Leicester City against Chelsea. Leicester playing tonight to go top of the league. And if they beat Chelsea, we'll be sitting above Frank Lampard's Chelsea at the halfway stage of the season. I could imagine that, the phone call that young Frank would get tomorrow morning from a gentleman in Israel probably wouldn't be that complimentary. So, Lampard under a bit of pressure, and it's results like ours tonight that create that pressure. Because being no doubt about it, in years gone by, this was a game we'd have probably settled for a draw, maybe even capitulated to a narrow defeat. But the manager, he's made those changes because he wants to send the message: go and win the game, lads. Yeah. Go and win the game. And had we not done so tonight, it'd have been an utter travesty because we were far the better side. The difference in quality, the opportunity that Furlong put it wide.
Yes,
he absolutely had to score. They'd done everything right to carve out the opportunity. They'd done their scouting. They knew Yarmolenko would go AWOL. They worked the ball down that flank. All he's got to do is just get it on target, and they take a point. And it's things like that the Albion manager would look at and go, that's the difference. That's the difference between the Championship and the Premier League. In the top flight, you get that chance. You've got to take it. I mean, manager after manager will turn up and tell you and say, you've got to take your chances. And the other aspect of tonight's game that Allardyce, I'm sure, will be spitting feathers about, in the last 4 or 5 minutes when they're sending long deliveries into our box, imagine if Robert Snodgrass, a player with his accuracy of delivery, had been available to Sam Allardyce tonight. That's the precise reason why Sam Allardyce has signed Robert Snodgrass.
Yeah.
When you get into the sort of the Hail Mary zone, who have you got that can actually put a ball on a sixpence and actually create the opportunity for somebody in the box? And Snodgrass, in that budget area, he's your man for that. Yeah. And for Allardyce tonight not to have that player available, you could understand why he might be less than enamoured with his employers if they've done a should we say, gentleman's agreement of whatever description with David Moyes' employers. It's hard enough when you're at the wrong end of the table, when you've got your full strength squad available. When the player who you've gone out and signed and said, right, we'll have him, because we know there's not a lot of money to spend, but he could make a difference. Only to be told in one of the games that you would target to get something, you can't play him, you're going to be furious.
Yeah, it's, I mean, and as we've said since we first came on air before the match kicked off, it's one that's we're going to have to watch that develop. And it's clearly going to be an issue. We've kind of speculated why Allardyce made that statement at the start of the game, and of course, time will tell why he actually did that. But it's a very, very strange thing to say. But I want to kind of roll back, if we can, briefly. And Gnome, are you back with us, or are you still?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
It's just an interesting couple of points raised. firstly, about our second goal, there was a suggestion that Yarmolenko, excuse me, when he headed the ball back, there might have been a slight nudge on the defender. Looked at it again, and it's just normal contact rather than anything. And I think that was the conclusion they came to.
Okay.
However, the other point they were looking at was the Souček penalty incident.
Yes, the one that you felt was a penalty. You thought it was.
I mean, in real time, Souček isn't one to go down. We've got players that do, and there are players in the league that do. Souček, if he goes down, you've got to think there might be something in there. And when they showed it again, the guy kicked the back of his heel. Souček got there first, and apparently it was looked at by VAR, and for some reason VAR decided there wasn't enough in there to give a penalty. Well, I think I'd argue that point. If you're going to look at it and you see that, that's a penalty. They had Peter Walton there, does his usual defending whatever decision the ref came to was okay. No matter how wrong it was, and he was it based everything on that. So that was the comment that they had. Anyway, the two comments. That's why I came away from you. Another interesting thing that's come out when I was scouting through, and I haven't had this confirmed yet, but when I was looking through the forum a few minutes ago, it's been suggested that on what we're calling it, Snodgate. That West Ham obtained clearance from the Premier League before entering into the deal.
Okay, and where's that information come from? Do you know?
I don't know. So the comment is it's kind of hearsay. The comment is that it was being said on the radio. So obviously up in here, so I'm listening to that. Can't confirm that, of course. However, if that's the case, it brings an interesting parallel back to the Tevez affair. Insofar as when the Tevez transfer was discussed with the Premier League, when the deal was going through on that day, there was a conversation with a female Premier League official. Now, it had been the intent of West Ham's legal team to question her about the contents of that conversation. But mysteriously, when it came to the day of the hearing, she was sent on holiday. So make of that what you will. So it'll be interesting to see what contact either or both clubs had with the Premier League in arranging that transfer. And if the Premier League did confirm it was okay, then well, stuff it. We did ask,
What is interesting, if I can...
but I'm sorry. I mean,
I don't think it's right. Don't get me wrong. I'm not happy with the clause, and I think if you transfer somebody to somebody, that's it. Yeah, there is a rule that says you can't do that if there's somebody on loan. Appreciate that law's there, but if you transfer to somebody, you don't start picking and choosing what games they play in. And I wouldn't be happy with that. But in this particular instance, if it's been asked and cleared, then there's nothing what we said about it really.
Let me
the rules league are looking at, but
well, I was just going to say, Pinky, sorry, if I can just come in this, and then I'll come to you if I may. I can tell you exactly what Rule I7, which is the specific rule that has been quoted as potentially have been breached on this occasion, states. And it says that no club shall enter into a contract which enables any other party to that contract to acquire the ability materially to influence its policies or the performance of its teams in league matches, any matches in the professional development phase games program or the professional development leagues, as those terms are defined in the youth development rules, or in any of the competitions set out in Rule L9, which is another rule. So... Pinky, you were going to come in there anyway. I just wanted to point out the specific text involved there.
If you're doing a deal where you feel you have got to contact the authorities to see is it all right, inherently you know it's wrong. It's as straightforward as that. If you're constructing a deal that is so convoluted, you're checking the rule book and then. Well, I'm not really sure on the rule book, so we'll ask the people that wrote the rules. Is it okay? Well, do you know what? If I was a club that was battling relegation and we went down by whatever it was, and West Brom or or whoever survived, whichever the benefiting club is deemed to have survived,
Yep.
I'd be straight onto my legal team saying, right, get all over that, because do you know what? If Sheffield United can go and squeeze 30 million quid or the fat end out of West Ham United, let's go and see what we can get out of either West Ham or West Brom or whoever made all the Premier League. And I just feel that for our club to be anywhere near that kind of shenanigans shows incredibly poor judgment.
Well, that's the point. That's the point, isn't it, Pinky? I mean, given our history in this area, and you mentioned it, the 30 million pound that it cost us from the Tevez situation, notwithstanding the £5 million fine that was also levied prior to that, and what other costs were involved. It's madness, isn't this, from West Ham to even entertain the idea of getting involved in something like this?
Well, it begs the question, why were we so desperate to sell Robert Snodgrass that we would go to those lengths just to make sure we could get the deal done and exclude him from playing against us? I mean, are we struggling to pay the cost of the diesel for the bus between London and wherever?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can't be that short of money, surely, that we're having to do deals like that. When the actual simple thing would be, if you want to buy him, and if you want to pick him against us, well, that's nothing to do with us.
Mm.
But it's the fact that the Baggies manager has gone public just ahead of the game, and I can understand the current owners of West Bromwich Albion not being up to speed with the history over the Tevez affair and all the rest of it. I can almost understand David Sullivan, who's not a football professional, not really understanding it all. But I'm bloody certain that Sam Allardyce, who is perhaps the most financially astute manager in the game, shall we say, he'd know all the history of that. He'd know exactly what he was saying. And unless he's trying to work an advantage of some sort, Sam don't say a word. He don't confuse him with being a stupid bloke, because he isn't.
No,
he knows exactly what he's saying, and there's a reason for it. And I think Gordon's probably got him on the interview at the minute. Are you listening into him, Gordon? Yeah, so we'll find out if he passes comment at all. But I can't believe that Sam Allardyce would ever make those comments unless there was a purpose behind it.
No,
he doesn't chuck it away. Yeah, he knows what he's saying.
I make you absolutely right. I mean, I think that's quite deliberately worded statement, and we, what the intention is. As I said, we'll find out in due course. But I think you're onto something there. I think that's quite deliberately done, and very interesting scenario. Anyway, as I said, we shall watch that develop. While Gnome is listening to what Mr. Allardyce has got to say, perhaps he's mentioning the situation again. Who knows? We'll find out in due course. I just wanted to go back to something you said when you were summarising the game a few moments ago, Pinky, when we were talking about eking out these wins against teams like West Brom and Burnley. Kind of just had a quick look while we were talking there, back up the list of, being as we are now halfway through the season. We're 19 games in, exactly halfway through. Looking back at those games, going right the way back to Newcastle on the 12th of September. And it's really difficult to see any games in which we've played particularly poorly. Now, the obvious one is, of course, the first game of the season, that game against Newcastle. And even then, the first half, we didn't play badly. We hit the woodwork on a couple of occasions. We're a little bit unfortunate. Dreadful second half. Similar story, perhaps, against Manchester United. We were exceptional in the first half. Fell apart a little bit in the second half. Perhaps a little bit of naivety being our undoing there. The one game which you look at and say, we in terms of the result, which we got a battering, was Chelsea when we lost 3-0. But even that one, I recall we sat here and were kind of couldn't quite figure out how it had ended 3-0. It certainly wasn't a game that, you know, should have ended 3-0. And you sort of look back at the season and you think, you know, this isn't luck, is it? We're not just getting these results by hook or crook. This is a very, very good season we're having. We're not playing badly at all. We're not played badly for an entire game, really. You know, you look back, there isn't one game where you could say, in fact, if anything, I think the worst we've played was perhaps a game we won against Villa when we won 2-1. And I thought we were given a bit of a hiding and lucky. But, you know, it really is an exceptional opening half to the season and pretty much unparalleled in recent history.
Oh, it's a decent first half, being no doubt, and particularly when you consider the broader issues. You know, if you look at David Moyes' transfer budget, that, you know, money he's had to spend. You know, Bowen and Souček arrived this time last year. You know, in that context, you've then got, you know, Soufal arrives in the summer, and, you know, was that £5 million, something of that nature. We've seen a string of players depart, whether there's Dirty Jack, who, you know, who thought he was too big for West Ham United and he's settled for the retirement home that is Bournemouth. You know, enjoy your football, Jack, if you're watching.
He's gone back there now, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's gone back there. And, you know,
yeah.
Why did he feel the need to make the comments he did on the way out the door?
Yeah.
We'd paid him fairly. We'd given him an opportunity to resurrect his career here, and he didn't do it. I think he made something like 6 Premier League starts, something of that nature for us. But back to the case in point in terms of how we're playing at the minute. It's a very, very good first half. Nothing flashy, nothing over the top. I wouldn't say there's too many games really they'll sit in the memory bank for too long. But in terms of competent, professional performances, in terms of getting the job done, the players have got the job done, and the manager and coaching staff have got the job done on a very small, gossamer thin squad. I mean, you look at there tonight. You know, we called it a few minutes before he was hooked. We said Antonio is out on his feet, running the risk of injury if he stays on. You know, I'm not going to spot a single thing that David Moyes isn't going to spot. He's got an army of people behind him saying, you know, we've just looked at the GPS stats and Antonio is now running 30% less hard over 20 yards than he was 40 minutes ago. I mean, there's a lot of technology goes into all of this. They know exactly the condition of a player at each stage of a game. And, you know, the manager hooks him and is bringing on 33-year-old Mark Noble, to replace Antonio. Obviously not in the same position, and you're thinking, how has, what are we, the 8th or 9th wealthiest club in the world in terms of revenue?
Yeah.
Got itself yet again in a position where after only 19 games, we're down to one make-do and men striker, nothing on the bench. How does this happen? You know, and I think it's a great credit to David Moyes, you know, Alan Irvine, Nolan, Pearce, that they've actually got a competitive team out there from a very small squad. And you have to say, as a collective unit of managers and coaches, I think they're probably punching miles above their weight relative to what other coaching staff are doing at other clubs. You actually, you know, just the size of the squad to compete in this league, and where we are at the halfway stage, we're doing something right on the pitch. I think we're getting so much wrong in the boardroom it's embarrassing, but on the pitch, which is the bit the manager can influence, we're grinding it out without it being 10 men behind the ball and all that sort of nonsense. We're doing okay. We're doing okay.
Yeah, doing exceptionally well. And as you said, that team that Moyes has built around him is doing an absolutely fantastic job. I think Kevin Nolan as well is really proving his worth. I mean, up against his old boss tonight. And
I mean, other than Arthur Masuaku, who's not available at the minute, just off the top of our heads, who's unfit?
That's it, isn't it?
There you go. So a long-term physical problem that is needed an operation on for a long while.
Yeah.
Every other player that is available to the manager is available for selection.
Fantastic.
At the halfway stage.
Yeah.
And
bear in mind all the problems we've had, in the past.
You know, it's we're getting something right somewhere.
Well, I think you asked earlier, Pinky, about our points at the halfway stage. Chris Mulhall, who is one of our contributors on the YouTube chat, says it's actually our best points total ever in Premier League history at this stage of the season, 32 points. So there you go. Really, everything's looking really good at the moment. A couple of other quick points before I move on to Gnome, who was listening to Sam Allardyce. Jack Wilshere apparently came on for Bournemouth tonight, according to Nick Forbert, in the 78th minute, and they were beaten 1-0 at Derby, and they're down to 5th in the Championship. Other news from the Premier League. Pinky mentioned that Leicester can potentially go top of the table tonight. They have already opened the scoring. They're 1-0 up against Chelsea with 9 minutes played up there at the King Power Stadium.
Nobody likes to see that. Nobody likes to see that.
Poor Frank. And of course, if Chelsea don't get a result there, they will remain below West Ham, as Pinky pointed out earlier this evening. Gnome's been listening to Sam Allardyce. Well, at the centre of so much controversy tonight, potentially. Gnome, what do you have to say?
Well, both David Moyes and Sam Allardyce. We'll deal with Allardyce first for once, because what he said about the game was pretty standard Sam stuff. Lapses in concentration at the end of the first half, and then a bit later on, Costas and that and the Furlong's miss. But we need to be concentrating a lot better, and overall pleased with the performance. But West Ham were better in the final third. And then he was asked about Snodgrass.
Okay.
And he said that he was informed that. Can I get back to you? Mum and Dad are calling.
We seem to have lost you, Gnome. Your audio has disappeared. Gnome's having a little fiddle. He's gone on mute, and I think we've lost Gnome. So we'll come back to Gnome in just a minute. So we're still none the wiser, Pinky, as to what Big Sam had to say.
Our father under Claudia Schiffer was just about to get her kit off, and I lost reception. I was really interested in paying close attention, and in a real ultimate tease, Gnome's done us. Is he back yet?
He's back.
I'm back.
Sorry about that. No problem.
Sorry about that. My
you were just about to tell us what Big Sam had to say, Gnome.
I've decided not to. No, all the boring stuff about the game. And then he was told, he said, before the game, you mentioned that Robert Snodgrass was not available for selection because of an agreement with West Ham. And he was asked, at what point, he was then told, the Premier League have said they're investigating a possible breach of rules. And the question was asked, at what point were you aware that Snodgrass would not be available? And he stood there and he sort of went, and he said, I'm not going to answer that question. He said, I'll answer that question if the Premier League want to come and ask me it. And if they've got any problems with it, I'll discuss it. That'll be between us and the FA. But until then, he said, that's the least of my worries. And having had a look at that particular rule that's been breached, the way it is worded is that if there's any problem for anyone, it would be West Brom's, because to paraphrase the way it's worded, it says no club shall enter into a contract that allows another club to influence its selection policy. To paraphrase, and West Ham haven't entered into a contract that allows anyone to affect our selection policy, but West Brom had there, and it's particularly worded that one-sided way. So I don't think we're going to have an issue with it. But I think West Brom might do. And he didn't look he thought long and hard. It was a good few seconds while he was sort of mulling over what his answer would be before deciding he wasn't going to answer. So, I think there's certainly a bit of concern from their point of view there.
Okay. Interesting. Well, hopefully
David Boyce was on earlier.
Okay.
Commented on the momentum, was pleased with the result. We're not where we want to be at the moment in terms of performance, but sometimes you've got to win ugly, and we won ugly. But he's very, very pleased. He says, but he wants us to be better. We're not playing at our potential at the moment, but we're still getting results, which is always good. He wasn't asked about Snodgrass at all, so I suspect he would have had no input into that. And welcome to Rio.
There you go. Rio has joined us for our post-match discussion. Unavailable tonight, of course, having to work as one of our key workers.
Have you finished doing the dishes? Have you done all your domestic chores? You're allowed out with your mates now. Yeah.
At which point Rio's supposed to say what chores, and we all say mine's a pint.
Indeed.
I'll tell you what, guys, as Rio's here, would you mind awfully if I disappeared? I have a family call to jump in on, and say that my dad hasn't been in the rudest of health of late, so I didn't
no problem.
Catch up.
No problem, and please pass our love and best wishes on to Gnome Senior.
Yeah, we'll do.
And
we'll catch up again soon.
Current, existing, and reigning. I suggest you have a name card in front of you, so you make sure it's the right name every time.
Doncaster, it's Doncaster, not Borussia Mönchengladbach. That's what.
Yeah. One of those.
Thank you as always for your contribution. Been great,
everybody.
As always, having you on again.
And apologies for the Wolves thing again. I don't know where my brain was.
No problem. You take care. We'll see you. We'll see you very soon. There you go.
Cheers. Goodbye, everyone.
Gnome. Leaving us, we're swapping in for a younger, fitter model. You could perhaps say, oh, he's still here. He hasn't gone yet. Rio has joined us. Rio, as I said a few moments ago, unavailable for the game tonight, having to work as I said, one of our key workers out there. Rio, did you manage to see any of the game in between work, or are you just catching up now?
I've been double screening. I had a Zoom call on, and also the game in the background. So I was flicking between the two. I don't know what happened at work, but I know that my nerves are shot by that last 15 minutes at West Ham.
Yeah, it was as we said, it was not the most eye-catching performance from the Hammers, but another win. We're up to 7th in the table. We've got 32 points on the board after 19 games. It's our best ever result at this time of the season. Everything's coming up roses for Mr. Moyes, isn't it, at the moment?
It's looking that way. I mean, I think like we discussed the other day, the free-flowing football will come in time, We all know what the issues are with that, and in terms of recruitment and getting a better standard of player in. But it's remarkable, isn't it? It's not even halfway, it's just over halfway through January, and we're more or less safe. I mean, what's going on?
You've triggered Pinky again there. Look, you missed this earlier. I mentioned that we were 8 points away from potential safety, and Pinky told me off in a very stern fashion.
Well, if I'd have said it the other way, we're virtually in Europe, he would have gone even more ballistic, wouldn't he? You just know it.
No, not at all. I think it's very West Ham United that, as the rest of the country's bailing out of Europe, we're piling in. Yeah,
oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah,
we're West Ham United. We do what we want. Yeah.
A good win West for the Hammers. Rio, goals for coming from Jared Bowen. What did you make of that first goal? I mean, let's talk about that. We haven't really spoken about that. Rio, I mean, the ball coming at some pace, and it was a really clever bit of control from Bowen to turn the ball in. I mean, it was sort of here, wasn't it, kind of between his chest and his shoulder, but very clever stuff.
Very clever indeed. It was a great ball in by Kufau as well, wasn't it? It's a bit of a. I thought we was the better side in the first half. I mean, I think we dominated possession for the first time all season, didn't we? I haven't seen the stats yet.
59% to West Ham compared to 41 to West Brom. So yeah, I think it's certainly the first time we've had that much of a lead anyway in terms of the split.
And for Jared to score a goal like that, I mean, the last few games, his decision making in front of goal hasn't been the best, has it? And when he has had a shot, it's been a little bit snatched, a little bit rushed, or he just hasn't found his rage with his feet in the last few games. to break the duck again with using the chest, clever piece of play, and well deserved. I mean, we all know what he brings to the team in terms of work rate and energy, and to see him notch a few goals, albeit in unconventional circumstances, more power to him. He's a good little player. I do like him a lot. He's been almost a year today since he joined us, and yeah, he's been a marvellous acquisition.
Yeah, worth every penny, you'd say. The second goal scored by Michail Antonio. Of course, he's no stranger to cropping up in front of the sticks and putting the ball in the net, scoring the winning goal. It took us until the 65th minute for that to arrive. But again, another great finish from Michail.
Yeah, very much so. Let's face it, he's the only natural finisher we got at the club at the moment, isn't he? And now he's coming up to speed. He's had, 3 or 4 games now. Notched the other night, notched again today. He's just showing what everyone knows. When he plays, we stand a far better chance of winning the game because we've got someone up front who can lead the line, who can pop up in the box and finish. It just causes defenders all sorts of problems. And it's just a shame he isn't 4 or 5 years younger and a little bit fitter and not so susceptible to the hamstring injuries all the time.
Yeah, it's an unusual one, isn't it? I mean, Pinky mentioned earlier in the stream that he signed for us in 2015, been with us for 6 years now. So we've certainly had him at his peak as a footballer, but in terms of the way he's playing, I mean, has he ever played better than he is now?
I mean, I actually thought when he first joined us and when he finally forced his way into the side, at right wing back, I thought that was his natural position, to be honest, initially, because he was so fantastic at ghosting at the far post and getting those headed goals.
Yeah.
But we've been really lucky that we've had a player who obviously loves playing football. He just loves life, doesn't he, really?
Yeah.
And we've seen him perform really well in 3 different positions. He was a decent winger, really good at right back, and now as a striker, he's evolved himself once more. And I think his record since the project restart is probably up there in the top 5 or 6 players in the Premier League, isn't it? So, since when West Ham had a striker like that? We haven't. And certainly not a converted one.
Yeah, that's for sure. And it's easy to forget, actually, isn't it, Rio? You spoke about him being a right wing back there, and it's easy to kind of forget that there was that spell, wasn't there, for a while just after he'd come to the club, where it looked like he might not have any future here at all, when he couldn't get in the team, and there was all that stuff going around on social media about, has anyone seen Michail Antonio? Do you remember that a few years ago that David Gold got involved in? And it's really an incredible rise to success for him, isn't it?
I thought that was incredibly harsh at the time, though, because Billich's side at that particular moment in time was performing so well that who could you really drop? You just can't buy players and say, in you go, and disrupt a winning side as it was at the time, and the side for the belief. But he stuck at it. He's forced himself into the side, and since then he hasn't looked back.
Yeah,
he's earned England places. I'm trying to think when he first won his England call up. That means he was playing midfield, wasn't he? When he got his first England call up,
I think he was playing up wide, wasn't he? Yeah, as a winger. Yeah.
So I mean, I think it just shows the calibre of the actual man himself, that he's forced himself into England setup as a wide player, and he could easily force himself back in again if he kept himself fit as a striker. That versatility at international tournaments would be a godsend, I think.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something? Pinky, do you think that Antonio's got any chance of receiving an England call-up now at this sort of late stage in his career?
No.
I think that's gone.
I think it's about the nature of international football and what you get penalised for in the international game that you wouldn't necessarily get penalised for in the Premier League. Given how well he's playing and what he's doing in this league, I suspect that if he played the same way for England, it'd be free kick after free kick after free kick.
Yeah,
and that's just that they ref the games in different ways. I've just been looking at the league table there, and we're just talking about, if we're looking for, is he now playing the best football that he's done for us? And I'm just trying to think, who's got better value out of a current striker, for want of a better phrase. In terms of who's had to spend big to get the goals. Yeah, and Manchester United, I think if you look at them, they've spent a lot more money to get goals. City, obviously. Leicester City, you could say they've got the value striker of all time in Jamie Vardy. But Liverpool, it's cost them an awful lot of money to get goals. Spurs, yeah, you could say the homegrown Harry Kane has been terrific, but you know, the rest of their team is very expensively assembled. Son, you know, isn't exactly, you know, a deadline day freebie. Everton, Calvert-Lewin again, homegrown. So either you've got a homegrown hero, or you've absolutely broken the bank. It's one of those two. I think what we've got in Mikhail is a player who we've finally found a position that really works for him and for us. And I think it was about £6.5 million we paid for him.
Yes, 6.5, 7 million, wasn't it? Yeah, no more than that.
You know, which for a player that can get you, as he'll probably get us this season, a dozen goals, is cheap as chips. You know, so I'd suggest we've got terrific value from him. I don't see him going back into the England setup, but I think, you know, if you look at the teams below us in the division, do any of them have anything like the same value for money in terms of striking options?
Yeah.
I'm not sure any of them do.
And of course, there are an awful lot of teams below us in the league at the moment, because West Ham are now up to 7th in the Premier League as a result of tonight's win against West Bromwich Albion. Now, we're going to go back to have a quick look at that before we wrap up. I'm going to talk. In fact, before we do that, let's have a look at the forums, because I know, Pinky, you've been keeping an eye on what's been going on westbrom.com and the KUMB.com forum match thread. Let's start with Albion first of all, and the fans. I mean, pretty much from the word go, they were all pretty despondent and fearing the worst tonight. I suspect there was a brief moment when they thought they might get something at the start of the second half, but of course it all panned out pretty poorly for them in the end. What's the view from the West Midlands there today?
The view from the Baggies supporters is no complaints. You know, to their absolute credit, they're not a single one of them is saying we were robbed or we deserve more than we got. You know, post after post is we're just not good enough all the way through. Yeah, their keeper's getting a bit of stick because he can't handle crosses. Central defence getting absolutely pummeled. But I think that's, you know, I think I prefer they gave more credit to Antonio than actually criticised their player. Yeah, I'm not seeing quite enough credit coming through from them in terms of what our players can do. But they're in no doubt at all that they are in the deepest of deep mire, and you know they just can't see a way out of it. I would say, yeah, this is a supporter team, bunch that are resigned to their fate. They know they're going back down to the Championship, and what's more, I think Sam Allardyce knows they are as well.
Did you agree with that? I mean, you said that this could be, you know, the occasion on which Sam's record of never having taken a team down from the Premier League could finally go. You're satisfied with that from what you've seen tonight?
Yeah, that team's not staying up. Okay. I'd stick big money on that down at a bookmakers and say West Brom are not going to stay in the Premier League, not on tonight's showing, and dare I say it, I'm not convinced that Sam Allardyce will take them down.
Yes, after what's happened tonight, we shall see. Rio, what are your thoughts on that? Do you agree with Pinky that Albion are destined for the drop immediately?
Absolutely.
Sam,
I thought it was very harsh to sack Slav, to be honest, because did a really good job bringing them up. They're not invested massively, have they? I mean, apart from Grady, their signings didn't stink of a team that was going all out to ensure Premiership survival, and they haven't got enough up front. They lack Premiership quality all around the pitch, and I wasn't surprised Sam took the job, because we all know what his personality is like, and he thinks he can do anything. But out of all the positions he's taken in trying to firefight and make clubs survive in the Premier League. This was the biggest ask. They were so far behind the pace that it was virtually an impossible job. So I'd like to know the terms of his contract, because I don't suppose he's doing it for peanuts. Let's put it that way. And I think if he did keep him up, that the anti-relegation clause would have been huge. But it was a losing battle from the moment he stepped in the door. I think, as I said, it's really harsh to sack Bilic. And I think it's incredibly egotistical, Sam, to really take control of this, knowing what he's got at his disposal, which isn't a lot. It's not a lot at all.
Yeah, and it's definitely not looking good for the former manager of West Ham United there, who's come to his old team tonight, only to go away with yet another defeat in a season where they're beginning to rack up for the Baggies. It certainly seems. Just going back to us tonight, Pinky, sorry, we didn't look at the KUMB .com forum match thread to see what the Hammers was saying. I don't know if you had the opportunity to look, because I know Gnome was doing that for us, wasn't he? And then Gnome's obviously had to go. I don't know if you've had the chance to have a look.
Yeah, I mean, it's standard sort of, we've won the game, and interesting here from Morocco Mole. It's made hard work of it again after passing it around really well in the first half. Just like Saturday, we were much better with Ben Rama on the pitch, 2 points off Liverpool. So again, Moley there is basically saying, guys, 2 points off Liverpool at the halfway stage. I think at the same stage last year we were 30 odd points behind them, something of that nature. So reasonably positive, I'd say, but I think tempered with the fact that they know, everyone that's posting tonight knows the caliber of opposition was pretty weak, which always takes the gloss, unless you go and do 5 or 6-0. It always takes the gloss off a win. Billardino, wasn't our best performance, but look at what we were playing. We tried to create, and I'll take that. Compare it to the back 5 performance against Fulham as an equivalent, and I'll take that showing all day. Pablo J thought the ref had a decent game. Didn't notice him much until he booked Baggy for diving. JBB, he's launching into the Allardyce comments. He's saying a verbal contract is the same force as a written one, especially as both parties agree its existence. It's interesting. Billy Bond's boots. Yarmo does my head in. Twice he nearly cost us tonight. So again, he's part of my Yarmo Boo Boy brigade, I'd suggest. And Moyes' mum's chipped in. We could have had 3 or 4, but a very good performance. Only time we were under the cosh was when Moyes decided to give Antonio a rest. And good evening to you, ironing board, if people were in doubt as to who I was describing as Moyes' mum. So there you go. But yeah, positive, but tempered with the fact that we were basically playing against a team doomed for the Championship.
Well, West Ham, as we said earlier, up to 7th in the Premier League, 32 points from 19 games at the halfway stage now, and it is, as again we pointed out earlier, our best ever start to a Premier League season, and got no complaints. I mean, normally we can sit and we can find something to moan about at the end of a session, but Pinky, please do.
We are 19 games away from our manager's contract expiring. So here we are. The club, I'm led to believe, about to announce very significant losses. A squad that is gossamer thin, 1 striker who is over the age of 30, a club captain who is 33, a star player who does the on-pitch captaincy, who is, a long-rumoured Chelsea target. Yet again, we're going to go into the summer period needing 4 or 5 big-ticket players. And where is the money going to come from? Because there seems a real reluctance by the chairman to put a bit of paper in front of David Moyes. I mean, maybe he has, maybe they've sat down and done a deal and just agreed, do you know what, we'll look at it at the end of the season. Maybe both parties are happy with that. Maybe it's David Moyes saying, no, don't bother the contract just yet. Maybe Moyes is putting himself in a position where he can say, there you go, Mr. Chairman, we are 7th with a record points haul. What can you offer me? And it won't be about what goes in David Moyes' pocket. It'll be what funds does David Moyes get to spend on players, and will it be he who's allowed to make those decisions? Because nobody's convincing me that Ben Rama was a David Moyes signing. And yet, when Moyes wants to go and sign a player now, we've put a low ball bid in because there's not enough money in the pot.
Well, let's hope. I mean, it is a week now, of course, until West Ham's next Premier League outing. Before that, of course, we face Doncaster in the FA Cup on Saturday. It's Crystal Palace away next Tuesday, so a week today. And then, of course, we have Liverpool 5 days after that, which should be an interesting test of just how far David Moyes' West Ham have come on this season. But just looking ahead to this weekend, just wrapping up tonight with a quick look ahead to the FA Cup this Saturday. As I said, Rio, it's Doncaster, and not a side, League One team. We really should have too much of them. You would expect. I wanted to ask you about what sort of team we're going to put out. Will we rest Ogbonna? Will we give Dawson a rest? Bring Diop in? But as we realised for the Stockport game, we don't really have an awful lot of choice, do we? Unless we're going to bring youngsters, under 23 players into the team. That, as Pinky has pointed out just there, the squad is bereft of any real sort of depth at the moment. So, do you see many changes being made for Saturday?
Not at all. I think the only one really is he might give Mikel a little bit of a rest and put a youngster at the Biko on. But I really can't see many changes. As you said, the squad is so thin.
Yeah,
we can't really afford to. And to be honest, what I've seen coming through the youth ranks, particularly in the areas that we need, and we need to rest players and potentially give them a little bit of a break, I can't see very many options. Also, I think they're still suffering from the fact that they haven't played a lot of football at that young level, have they? They had the COVID outbreak at the training ground, and some of the more likely candidates haven't played a lot of football since then, and I can't see Moyes throwing them into a game scenario. And maybe Adeboko, you're going to obviously Randolph's going to go back in goal.
Yeah,
but apart from that, I can't see too many changes at all.
No, I mean, if you look at the bench tonight, maybe Fredericks, maybe Fredericks and Johnson coming in at full-back.
Possibly, but
maybe
that's about the most of it.
What about Alves? Do you think that he's signed now? He came at the beginning of the month. Do you think this might be an opportunity to give him a start there and rest? Maybe Dawson or Ogbonna?
I don't think he'll rest Dawson, because Dawson hasn't had a great amount of football, has he? Until the recent run since New Year's. Was it New Year's Day? I think he made his debut.
I mean, he's played a lot lately, isn't he? And playing fantastic,
But before that, he barely kicked the ball for 4 or 5 months. So he shouldn't be suffering the effects too much. If anyone needs a rest in the back four, it'd be probably Ogbonna, who's been a mainstay all season. But do you want to take him out the side and risk disrupting the back line and losing what is a quality player, because he's been absolutely immense for the last 18 months.
Yeah, do you think the fact that we're playing Liverpool or Man U in the next round might sort of come into David Moyes' thinking when he's selecting the team this Saturday?
I don't think so, to be honest. I mean, he must be as gutted as we were. They're making 2 draws on one night and ruining the anticipation and bringing the doubts already if we get through. It's devalued the FA Cup again, isn't it? But I don't think it affects him really. You just got to play what's in front of you.
Yeah, very much so. Pinky, do you see any problems this Saturday from Doncaster? Do you see a much changed team, or do you think it'll be pretty much the same kind of team we've seen tonight, as was the case at Stockport, wasn't it, a couple of weeks back?
I think we'll see pretty much the first 11, certainly 9 of them, and why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we see, you know, the best team or very nearly the best team that's available? Because, you know, respect the competition, respect the opposition. And if we battle through to a final, well, the players that got you there would all say, hang on, I've played through every round. I want to start. Can you imagine if you're a young player, you know, the teams that are just clubs that put out the youngsters all the way to the final, and then when there's a chance for a bit of silverware, sorry, lads, not this week. We'll go with the senior pros. It's not a good look. And I think, again, from the manager's perspective, keep picking the team that's going to get the job done, and be sure of getting the job done. No banana skins. Because from David Moyes' perspective, every time we win, every time we get through another round of a cup, his position just gets stronger. His personal negotiating position with the chairman improves. And why would he want to weaken it or run the chance of weakening it? So for me, no. And then the fact that he knows it's Liverpool and Man United if we get past Doncaster.
Yeah.
The very best, most competitive people want to challenge themselves against the best and most competitive opponents.
Yep.
You know, and I would imagine somebody like David Moyes would be looking at it and go, fabulous. We've got the chance of a plum tie against either Liverpool or Man United. Do you know what, lads? Can you imagine the glory if we beat one of those two?
Yeah.
That's the positive mindset of winners and champions. Yeah. It's not, oh Christ, look who we've got in the next round.
Yeah.
That's the mindset this club desperately needs to get rid of. Yeah. And if Moyes is going to achieve things as a manager of our club, then he's got to be true to that kind of thought process. It's no, you've got to look forward to playing Man United and Liverpool. Yeah, because do you know what? That's when you find out how good you really are. So for me, I want the strongest team he's got. I don't think if we do that, we'll be too good for Doncaster. You know, and the next round, here we come. Hopefully.
Our other two games against those potential opponents as well this season, we've not disgraced ourselves, have we? Man United at home, we should have been 3 or 4-0 up. Liverpool away, I thought we was unjustly picked apart towards the end. But we acquitted ourselves more than adequately. And they're beatable, you know. This season's proved that every team in this Premier League is beatable. And we can do it, judging just based on our performances against the respective opposition earlier in the season. So there's nothing to fear.
Gentlemen, I'm loving this optimism that's coming out of these speakers into my ears here from everyone here and on the forums. It's great to see. It's been a while since, as West Ham fans, we've been able to speak so positively, and I think that's really down to the man in charge at the moment and his backroom team. We've touched upon it tonight. David Moyes doing an absolutely fantastic job, I think. You know, as we've said on the forum.
Oh no! Leicester 2, Chelsea 0. Nobody likes to see that.
Oh dear.
Sorry,
could tonight get any better? In fact, saying that. Pinky pointed out earlier, if Chelsea don't get anything from that game, then they stay below West Ham in the Premier League table. And after half of the season, who would have predicted that back in September? West Ham are 7th in the Premier League, having beaten Sam Allardyce's West Bromwich Albion, minus Robert Snodgrass, of course. And we'll maybe find out more about that in the coming days. Goals coming from Jared Bowen in the first minute of added on time at the end of the first half. And Michail Antonio stepping up to score the winning goal in the 65th minute after Pereira had equalised for Albion 10 minutes after the restart. 3 more points for West Ham. 32 points now from 19 this season. 7th in the table. What was it, Pinky? 2 points away from second place at the moment. Oh, it's amazing stuff. Above Chelsea, above Arsenal, going great guns, and Doncaster to come this weekend in the FA Cup. One quick stat before we go. XG stat, expected goal stat for tonight's game. West Ham 2.18 to West Bromwich Albion's 0.46. So that did at least improve for Albion from the 0.07 that it stood at half time. But yeah, so that's just about it from us tonight. My thanks, as always, to the team, to the Pink Palermo, to Rio, and to Gnome, who had to leave us a little bit earlier. I hope you've enjoyed the broadcast tonight. Thank you, as always, to everyone who's joined us on the live stream. Thank you for your comments and your input. As I say every week, we love bouncing off you guys to see what you're saying and reading out the stats that you bring us as well, and those sort of things. So thank you very much for your company. We will be back on Saturday for West Ham United versus the mighty Doncaster Rovers in the 4th round of the FA Cup. And who knows what will happen after that. Of course, for the winners, it's Manchester United or Liverpool away. And as Rio said, it's an FA Cup. It's a one-off. Anything could happen. And in a season like we're having, anything certainly could happen. But of course, that bridge to cross first. League One Doncaster on Saturday. We will see you then for that one. Until then, come on, you Irons.